What's one thing that you want to impart to people every time you come by them that meet you? Like just one thing that they just get from you.
Regarding music or just in life?
General, just like a general, like, wow, Bret is awesome. I don't know. I
probably hope more than anything is that I've always wanted to be able to, and I actually pray this with my youngest daughter almost every night, is that we look for opportunity to show God's love in everything we do and say. So if you can actually do that on a consistent basis, it's not easy. It's easy to show God's love, but it's harder to find the situations or having your eyes open to those situations. And I would love to be able to impart peace, and it sounds so hippie-ish, but peace and love. I mean, I'm serious. That those two things, if you can bring peace and love to any situation, all the other things really don't matter, and it covers the multitude of issues that you're dealing with. Because it also, if you can bring peace and love, it brings compassion, it brings mercy, it pushes out cynicism, it pushes out strife or aggressiveness. And that's really kind of, hopefully, that I can make people smile. Smiles just, I'm a talker, I'm a laugher. I like to be sarcastic and tell stupid jokes. I like to laugh. I like to, when it comes to just things like that, I love to be free and open. And I wear my heart out on my sleeve, probably a little too much. I use, as my wife tells me, I give way too much information about things sometimes because I just start talking. She goes, "You know no strangers." I'm like, well, that's the way you meet people, is you introduce yourself, you figure out some common ground, you find out about them. I love meeting new people.
And one thing I really wanted to touch on was your Bretisms. I don't know if you...
Bretisms.
Yes. Where do these come from? Where do these Bretisms come from? Like, we've been a part of so many like prayer meetings together, and you come up with these awesome things. Like, oh man, it's fun.
You know, I don't know what to attribute those to. I'd say probably my mom is crazy quirky, and my dad was very musical. I say was, he's not dead, but he's just getting older. And he's kind of quirky too, but I think between them both and my brothers and sisters and everything else, just kind of, it's a huge influence on just probably the way I think and the way I talk and the way I come up with stuff. And I usually try not to be what the world view as normal. I mean, you have to show maturity because you have responsibilities, but in my mind I still feel like I'm 17. I do. And so, and I'm very sarcastic in my sense of humor, and sometimes it can be dry, sometimes it can be stupid, and analogies and stuff usually comes from that. And that's just the way I see stuff, you know. Like I think I'm kind of crazy sometimes, but then I get around Billy Frankie, and he has even more of the craziest visions, words, things that are deep inside of him than I could ever come up with. But probably knowing him for a long time too, there's a little bit of influence there. That's just really, sometimes that's how I feel God talks to me. And I'll see something and I'll be like, well, what does that have to do with, and then all of a sudden I make all these connections. That's how my brain has always worked. I may not get it right away, but you show it to me again and I can guarantee it, I will absorb it, I will learn it, and I will use it for the next step. And that's how I've usually done stuff. I'll be like, oh, did you know? Oh my gosh, see how this connected? And someone would be looking at me like, how in the heck did you connect that with that? Well, it's like blah, 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 blah. And they're like, yeah, but how did you do that all in your head? I'm like, I don't know how that all happened in my head. It just happened. And then the hardest point is trying to interpret it so people can understand it. There's so much stuff rolling around in my head, and the way I connect things and the way I see stuff. And I'm sure everybody has their version of whatever that is. And for me, sometimes it shapes colors, Bretisms, and it takes a while to be able to interpret what's going on in your head or in your heart. And people who can do that young are so far ahead of everybody else, in my opinion. If you can learn your body, yourself, the way you think, the way you feel, if you can learn how to interpret that in your body and being able to incorporate that in your everyday life, I think that is just an amazing part of being a human being in this lifetime. And not a lot of, I got to say that, not that I'm special or anything like that, above anybody or below anybody, but there's a lot of people I find that have no connection to themselves. They just kind of go through stuff. And I mean, this is a stupid analogy, but I can eat a burrito and I know how it's going to affect me because I've learned from that experience. Yep. And I guess some people that will eat one and go, oh, and then the next day they're like, I'm going to have a burrito. Really? If you know how it affects you, why would you do that?
Exactly.
And they just don't choose to learn their person, themselves as a human being. We're on this planet to learn and love and live the best we can. And I think just knowing how to do that, that's how I come up with these Bretisms. I have learned to interpret what's going on in my mind.
I think my favorite one that you've ever used, I think it was the pedal power one. You were talking about...
Unity gain?
Yeah, the Unity gain, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. I was surprised. That was good. Well, you know, Mike inspired it. He was saying there was unity that morning we were all praying together, and then someone else said unity, and I was like, holy crap, it's like we're a chain of effects pedals. And God is the unity gain pedal in front of it, pushing the signal and volume so there is no loss of tone through each one of us in the circle. And it just worked. Yep. And I'm like, wow, that was really cool. I don't know where it came from, but maybe it's because I was studying on building a buffer and for something, and I was learning some other stuff, and it all just made sense. It just boom, 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 and it just blew up. That's how it connects for me.
Oh, that was my favorite one. I remember that Sunday too. Something I won't ever forget. Oh my gosh.
I think there's another one about the breath of God. And I was so glad that God's breath does never stink. We have to use so many mints and everything in our mouth and brush our teeth, but His breath is just so perfect every time. And I'm like, thank God He doesn't have bad breath. Can you imagine what the anointing would be like? It'd be horrible.
We wouldn't be passing out due to like the presence, but due to...
No, it'd be like, oh, it's a smell. And we're like, oh, he's getting blessed. Nope, it's just the breath of God, and he didn't brush today. Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
God, where's the toothpaste? I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, that would be horrible.
That would be
Thank God that doesn't happen.
I know. I mean, oh my gosh. All right, so you have to go to work soon, but what's been the most embarrassing time you've had on stage, and probably the best time you've had on stage?
Oh, I would say it's kind of a two-edged sword, because the best time I have on stage almost seems to be like the next time I'm on stage is better than the last. But there definitely have been times where it's those times I think every musician kind of strives for. It's the times where, the way that I see it, it's when your mind and your soul, your hands and God all come together, and you just know it's like the perfect moment. It's like you don't have to think about your playing. You just play, and it sounds amazing to you, and everybody else around you is all feeding off of each other. And it's kind of like, I call it God's groove, because it doesn't matter whether you're playing a funk song, or you're playing this acoustic little folk song, or a song in church that is telling about God's love. There's always this groove in everything. And I think the best times I've had has been with that. I've had them at blues jams sometimes, where everything just kind of just works. And they're amazing. And afterwards, everybody kind of looks at each other and go, holy crap, that was awesome. And there have been times when I've been playing with different music leaders where it just works. Steve Clark, that's actually happened probably more playing with Steve Clark in my lifetime than any other person I played with. And not saying that anybody else is any kind of different realm or talent or anything like that. It's just we have this connection on this wavelength where it goes beyond looking at each other for cues or words, and it's just always worked. It's one of those things in life that you can't explain. I've had those moments playing with Mike Grimaldo. I've had those moments playing with Tristan Roberts, with Denise Frega. I'm trying to think, with Joel Kilmer. Those are the kind of leaders where I have learned so much for them, and it's been the push and pull groove thing. You get to a point where you don't have to worry about your playing. You're not worried about your tone. You're just so into what's happening there, and you're just getting completely blessed. As far as the most embarrassing, there's been a few. The one time, and I've said this a bunch of times, and Denise always tells me not to dwell on it, but I cannot get past it sometimes. And I was playing a worship set with Tristan Roberts, and we went over the song in one key, and we changed it and went over it again in practice. And when we started the whole service in front of all the people, I started off in the wrong key. But we didn't catch it until the band started going. Then he realized he was singing the wrong key, but he was right. And he's like, stops. And he stops. He goes, hold on. Bret, we're in B, not B flat. I'm like, all right, let's start again, shall we? The crowd was totally cool. They're like, yeah, woo, that was great. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, that was so embarrassing. That was a pretty bad one. Another time we were actually doing Where the Streets Have No Name at Lifehouse. Everything was going, it was one of those fluke things where I was messing around with that riff, and Steve goes, we're starting with service with that. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. Anybody else need to know how to play? So we're like, no, we all know the song. We're like, let's do it. Started off great. Halfway through the song, it was the first time I used a wireless unit. It quit working. I don't even know what nothing was coming out.
Yeah.
And so I was, for the second half of the song, while everybody was like, yeah, this is woo, yeah, blah, blah, and I'm like trying to figure out, unplugging things, and I finally, I don't know what happened, but right at the end of the song, it started working again.
Bummer.
I unplugged it, threw it down, plugged in with a regular cord, and never used wireless since. It's come a lot. Wireless has come a long way since then, so there are some very good things out there, but that was very embarrassing. I think anytime I hit a wrong note and the crowd actually knows it.
Oh yeah.
Because most of the time, the only people that care about your sound or how you play is yourself, period. No one cares that you're using a tube screamer or that you have a tube amp, except yourself and maybe other musicians that are listening to you and watching what you're doing.
Yeah.
The crowd doesn't care. They just want to be enveloped by the music that is coming out of whoever is playing.
Yeah.
So when I hit a wrong note and someone who doesn't even play an instrument looks up at you like, was that right? That's embarrassing. That's happened a few times, more than I'd like to admit, I think, sometimes. That's, yeah. On the opposite note, when you do something really good and they're like, wow, and you're like on cloud nine because you, and that's probably my ultimate goal in anything music-wise. Whether I'm singing something, playing something, being a part of something that can touch a person with the musical value of what you're doing, the way music has touched me and inspired me, that was probably my ultimate goal. That, and to be able to have like a healing in a service because of a lick you played, like the way David did when he used to play for Saul. That scripture where he played and the Spirit left him, that would be, I could die after that. If that ever happened, not that I'm looking for signs and wonders, just to let you know, God, I'm not like asking for this, but I'm asking for this. I would like to get to a point where the stuff I play would bring no glory to me at all, but that people would be visually, physically, spiritually, mentally changed because something that I played, God worked through me, whether it's a note, a bend, a riff, a chord, a lyric, anything. I think something like that would touch someone else would be like my ultimate goal in this life. If I could just do that once, I would be happy. To do it over and over again would be immeasurable.
Yeah. Well, you have to get to work, but I wanted to thank you for coming on your lunch break and doing this with me. And yeah, everybody, thanks for watching and have a good day. Woo!